Any truth to the accusation against you?
Fellow got hold of a detestable rumor, nothing more. Arthur Richmond was one of my officers. I sent him on a reconnaissance, he was killed. Natural course of events in wartime.
I am indebted to you for your help, General Mackenzie. Any truth to the accusation against you?
About that child, Cyril Hamilton. I was nursery governess to him.
Will you tell me how it happened?
I'd like to tell you. Cyril was forbidden to swim out far. One day, my attention was distracted. I couldn't get there in time. It was awful. But it wasn't my fault. At the inquest, the coroner exonerated me. Oh, and his mother. She was so kind. If she didn't blame me, why should this awful thing be said?
Are you sure you're telling me everything?
I'm telling you all I'm going to, Mr. Narracott.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
I was engaged through the Skilled Women's Agency to be Mrs. Owen's personal secretary for the remainder of the summer. Then I hope to return to teaching.
A pleasure as always, Miss Claythorne. Any truth to the accusation against you?
I remember Seaton perfectly well. Playwright, not a very good one. Charged with the murder of a chorus girl. He was very ably defended and made a good impression on the jury. Nevertheless, it was clear to me he'd done it.
Thank you kindly, Judge. Any truth to the accusation against you?
Beatrice Taylor was in service with me. Not a nice girl, as I found out too late. Loose. No morals whatsoever. In trouble. Her parents were decent folk, too. I'm glad to say they did not condone her behavior when I told them of it.
What happened to Beatrice?
Naturally, I did not keep her an hour under my roof. No one shall ever say that Emily Brent condoned immorality.
How did she die?
Not content with having one sin on her conscience, she committed a still graver sin. She took her own life, threw herself in the river. If she had behaved like a decent young woman, she'd be alive today.
You have no regrets?
She made an excellent breakfast. I missed that. Fresh juice every day.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
I received a letter with a signature that was not very easy to read. It purported to be from a woman I'd met at a certain summer resort 2 or 3 years ago. I am quite certain I have never met or become friendly with anyone of the name of Owen.
I overheard you mention St. Trednick to Miss Claythorne.
I was staying at a seaside hotel near St. Trednick this same week of August 4 years ago. That boy Cyril Hamilton drowned near there. It was the talk of the town. His half-brother was much older. Hugo, I think his name was. Cyril was a vile child, by all accounts, but first in line for the family title and estates. When he died, it all went to Hugo. He was just about Miss Claythorne's age. There was talk of something between them.
You're suggesting Vera let the boy drown so the man she loved could inherit?
That would be idle gossip. I don't indulge in idle gossip. I've only told you the facts of the case as I remember them.
I won't take up any more of your time, Miss Brent. Any truth to the accusation against you?
Look, Narracott, if that's what you want to call yourself. The rules have changed. Can't you see that? The past is past. It's the present we should be worrying about. Something is not right here.
Will you tell me how it happened?
All right. Perhaps I was doing the odd favor for the Purcells. But if your brother was framed, I had nothing to do with it. Yes, they paid me to perjure myself about Landor. Thanks to them, I was able to put enough away to set up my own detective agency. Nothing fancy. I've been straight ever since, I swear.
Landor died.
He got penal servitude for life and died in Dartmoor a year later. Not my fault he was such a delicate man.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
I run a little detective agency in Plymouth these days. I'm on a job. To protect Mrs. Owen's jewels, the letter said. Mrs. Owen, my foot. I don't believe there's any such person.
That is all for now, Mr. Blore. Now is not the time for chatter.
Interesting history Shipwreck Island has. I'd studied up on it before I came down.
What are the names of those two people I'm accused of killing?
John and Lucy Combs. I made a note of it.
Must have been a couple of kids I ran over near Cambridge. Beastly bad luck.
Them or for you?
Well, I was thinking for me, but of course you're right, sir. It was damned bad luck on them. Of course it was a pure accident. They rushed out of some cottage or other. Beastly nuisance. English roads are hopeless, of course. Can't get up a decent pace on them. Well, anyway, it wasn't my fault. This man is dead.
Did Marston choke to death?
You can call it choking if you like. He died of asphyxiation right enough.
Was Marston poisoned?
Can't say exactly. Everything points to one of the cyanides. No distinctive smell of prussic acid. Probably potassium cyanide. It acts pretty well instantaneously.
Was there something in the whiskey?
Yes, without a doubt.
Could he have been murdered?
Not my line of account. I'm a doctor, detective.
Did you know Marston before he arrived here today?
Not I. Personally or professionally.
What do you think of that record?
A disgraceful and heartless practical joke, I suppose.
Good evening, Doctor. Do you think it was suicide?
You conduct yourself well, Mr. Narracott, if you don't mind my saying so. Mr. Blore has told us that you are not what you appear. Yet you told him you were not a detective.
No, sir. But I've read many detective novels. I even had one of those junior detective kits when I was a boy. Magnifying glass, fingerprint powder.
Junior detective kit. Wonderful.
Ah, an amateur sleuth then. You appear to have something of a gift for it.
About the suicide, Judge.
I'm not yet prepared to offer an opinion.
Did you know Marston before he arrived here today?
I knew his father, the Duke, and his elder brother. Like so many younger sons of his class, Anthony Marsden was a bit of a wastrel, as you will have gathered. There were other rumors of late, of his dabbling in politics, but this is not the proper forum for that discussion.
What do you think that record means?
May I answer that in a moment after asking a question of my own?
Of course.
Does anyone know Mr. Owen's full name?
My letter was signed only U.N. Owen.
Yes, U.N. Owen. Or, by a slight stretch of fancy, unknown. I'll now answer your question, Mr. Narracott. The name, the recording, the circumstances under which all but you were lured to this island. I have no doubt in my mind that we have been invited here by a madman, very possibly a dangerous homicidal lunatic.
Why did you retire, Judge?
I know there was talk about my competence, even my ego running wild. But the truth of it is very simple. My health. A lifetime sentencing my fellow man, and now a higher power has passed judgment on me.
Thank you kindly, Judge. Do you think Marston committed suicide?
Yes. In my experience, certain types of individuals, when faced with their sin, will then commit the greater one.
Did you know Marston before he arrived here today?
No.
What do you think that record means?
There is something very peculiar about it.
I won't take up any more of your time, Miss Brent. Do you think Marston committed suicide?
I shouldn't have said Mr. Marston was a suicidal person at all.
Did you know Marston before he arrived here today?
No eyes on him. And who gave you the authority to question us?
You're under no obligation to answer me. What do you think that record means?
I don't like it. Not one bit. Very queer, the whole situation.
Good evening, Mr. Bloor. Do you think Marston committed suicide?
He didn't seem particularly remorseful. Of course, the record might have set him off somehow. A new incident long after the fact may create a strong feeling of guilt or fear. Wouldn't you say, Doctor?
Possible. Quite possible.
Did you know Marston before he arrived here today?
Heard of him, but we'd never crossed paths or swords.
What do you think that record means?
There is something wrong with this entire weekend, and especially with our host, Mr. Owen.
I believe we're all coming around to that conclusion.
Yes, but I know something you don't, Judge.
What is that?
I recognize the voice on that recording, and it was definitely not Mr. Owen.
Who was it?
Not so fast, Narracott. Not until I think things through a bit more.
Thanks for your time, Mr. Longer. Do you think Marston committed suicide?
You'd never think he would kill himself. He was so alive. When he came down that hill in his car, he looked... Oh, I can't explain.
Did you know Marston before he arrived here today?
No, I'm sure I would have remembered.
Steady, Miss Claythorne. The lad had his faults, you know.
What do you think that record means?
It was unfair, what it said. Very unfair.
You seem to be a remarkably perceptive girl, Miss Claythorne.
Why, thank you, Mr. Narracott.
Is there anything you can tell me about our fellow castaways?
Castaways? You make it sound so...
Romantic?
I was going to say dramatic. Let me see. No one has confided any secrets to me, I'm afraid. Oh, except one.
That is...
I really don't know you well enough to answer you.
Thank you for your time, Miss Claythorne. Do you think it was suicide?
How dare you?
No, Marston, before he arrived here today.
No, I don't think so. Not a military man, I'd wager. Lombard now. He reminds me of someone from my command. But the name wasn't Lombard.
think that record means?
Ugly. After 30 years. Ugly thing to say.
Good evening, General.
Where have you been, Rogers?
I went to check on my wife, sir. She is resting comfortably. But I'm afraid I have some distressing news.
Oh?
One of the china figures of her sailor boy has been broken off.
Chapter 2. 9 little sailor boys sat up very late. One overslept himself, and then there were 8.
Filthy night. I tried to go out to get some more wood for the fire, but the wind drove me back.
A storm like that will keep us all indoors.
My apologies for the accommodations, Mr. Narracott, but all the beds are taken.
Makes one wonder where the Owens were planning to sleep, doesn't it?
A good servant follows instructions, sir. He does not question his employer, unless you'd like to share the deceased's room with the corpse.
This will do fine. Thank you, Rogers.
I'll wish you a good night then, sir.
Everyone should be sound asleep by now. Good time for a little stealth work. They don't need it, and I'm no pack rat. Wargrave on justice. I can only imagine the egotism that lurks within those pages. It's a book holder. Seems like a long time since it's been used. A rather beautifully made globe of the world. The drawer is locked. Let me examine this further. This bears a closer look. Nothing a little elbow grease can't undo. I can't see anything of interest. The flower stuck to bits of it. Aha! A fingerprint. I transcribed the pertinent passages in my notebook. I transcribed the pertinent passages in my notebook. I transcribed the pertinent passages in my notebook. It's locked fast. It's tightly locked. Locked. The body was thoroughly searched. No need to disturb it now. I see nothing remarkable. Perhaps another time. I can't open it. It's locked. Locked. He's as tight as an owl. I expect nothing could wake him up. Morning is coming. I'd best get back to my bed. Well, I didn't get much rest, but at least I have something to show for it. I'd best see if everyone has come down for breakfast.
If what Narracott told Vera is true, and mind you, I take anything he says with a grain of salt, then they will not be sending a boat until at least Monday, even if the storm clears.
Wise to remember Narracott's the odd man out here.
Yes, thanks to you, I believe, Blore.
At least nothing else has occurred.
I hope you are correct, Miss Claythorne. However, I feel compelled to draw your attention to this table's centerpiece.
Now 2 are broken. How odd.
Ah, Mr. Narracott, good morning. Since Mr. Marsden won't be joining us, there is an extra place for breakfast, although breakfast itself seems to be a trifle behind schedule.
I'm afraid there is no breakfast at present. Mrs. Rogers has not been able to carry on this morning.
What's the matter with the woman? I was promised fresh apple juice this morning.
I must tell you a sad piece of news. Mrs. Rogers died in her sleep.
Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
She was a very skittish creature. And she had a shock last night. It might have been heart failure.
Her heart certainly failed to beat. What caused it to fail is the question.
Did you hear anything in the night?
No, my sleep was quite restful.
A pleasure as always, Miss Claythorne. Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death, Judge?
I'm afraid it confirms my opinion that there is something very wrong on this island. It occurs to me that if he is almost certainly on this island there.
I think I know immediately. Did you hear anything in the night?
I confess I slept fitfully. Marsden's death, the storm, but I heard nothing. Possibly also due to the storm.
Understandable, Judge. Quite understandable.
Mr. Narracott, can your boat be repaired?
I doubt very seriously it can be repaired. Mr. Blore did a good job.
Steady on. I didn't know then how the land lay, did I?
So you say.
If you find a means of leaving the island or of signaling the mainland, I'm sure we would all be in your debt.
And I'm sure all of us would help in any way we could.
Here, we're never going to leave the island. None of us are ever going to leave.
What were you hinting at concerning Marston's politics?
Only that he'd become mixed up with some foreigners. I think that's all I'd better say at present.
I am grateful for your assistance, Judge Walgrave.